Okay, so for the next lesson, we have dihybrid cross. Dihybrid cross is a cross of two traits from two organisms. In dihybrid crosses, F1 or the first generation or the first filial generation and F2 or the second filial generation happens. But only plants undergo second filial generation since they breed with each other, self-breed or interbreed. So tayo namang mga humans, hindi naman natin nagagawa yung magkapatid sila pero nagbe-breed sila. So ang mangyayari lang sa atin is F1. We have here the problem.
For the sample problem, suppose that black-colored hair is dominant over blonde hair and brown-colored eyes is dominant over blue eyes in humans. The couple has both heterozygous black hair and brown eyes. What will be the phenotypic and genotypic ratio of their offspring?
So for the first step, we need to know which characteristic is dominant and recessive. In the example, we have, suppose that black-colored hair is dominant over blonde hair and brown-colored eyes is dominant over blue eyes in humans. So first, let us use letter B for the color of the hair and letter E for the color of the eyes. For the black-colored hair, it is the dominant, so capital letter B. And for the blonde-colored hair, we have small letter B. So this is for black. And the other one is for blonde. The next one is the color of the eyes. Let us use letter E for the color of the eyes. For the brown colored eyes, capital letter E. And small letter E for the blue eyes. Next is step 2, determine the genotypes of the parents, whether it is homozygous or heterozygous for each trait. So the couple are both heterozygous for black hair and brown eyes. So for the father, we have heterozygous black hair, so one capital and one small. And also, we have here heterozygous for brown eyes, capital E and small letter E. So since they are both heterozygous, same lang sila ng set of gametes or ng genes. So for the mother, ganun din, capital and small, dominant and recessive, and then dominant and recessive. For the step 3, you need to get the gamete combinations from the parents using the foil method. So first outside, inside, last method. So let's have here the gametes of father. So since pares lang naman sila nung mother, ito na lang yung ipapakita ko sa inyo. Again, we have recessive, heterozygous rather, and also heterozygous here. So, foil method. First, outside. So, ito muna. We need to combine the gamete. So, ito muna ang capital. That is our first gamete combination. Next, ito naman yung first, papunta din dun sa outside. So, that is our second gamete combination. Next, ito namang recessive, i-combine din natin siya dito sa isang dominant at sa isang recessive. So, ito, ayan. So, ito yung ating gamete combinations from the parents using the foil method. First, outside, inside, last. So, ganun yung ating pagko-combine ng gamit. So, itong apat na to, ito yung ilalagay natin doon sa taas at sa side ng ating Punnett square. I already put here the gametes of the father and the mother, the combination of gametes that we constructed using the foil method. In dihybrid cross, we have here 16 boxes. So, again, in writing inside the quadrant of a Punnett square, you should start writing the dominant trait. Pero dito, pagsasamahin mo muna yung trait for the color of the hair, tapos yung trait for the color of the eyes. Okay, so for the first one, itong box na to, yung dominant trait muna or the capital. We have here 2 dominant trait for the color of the hair. So, yun muna yung magkasama for the trait of the hair. Next is for the trait of the eyes. So, parehas din siyang dominant. Next one, ito naman sa baba. So, we have 2 dominant for the hair. And then 1 dominant and then 1 recessive. Next, 1 dominant and 1 recessive for the color of the hair. And then 2 dominant for the color of the eyes. Next, for the next one, we have here 1 dominant and 1 recessive. And then 1 dominant and 1 recessive. Next, for the second column, we have 2 dominant, 1 dominant and 1 recessive. Here, 2 dominant and then 2 recessive. Next, 1 dominant and 1 recessive. 1 dominant and 1 recessive. Next one, 1 dominant here and 1 recessive. Then we have 2 recessive. Next, third column, 1 dominant, 1 recessive, and then both dominant. Next, 1 dominant, 1 recessive, 1 dominant, and 1 recessive. Next is 2 recessive, and then both dominant. Next, 2 recessive, 1 dominant, and 1 recessive. For the last column, we have 1 dominant and 1 recessive, 1 dominant and 1 recessive also. Next, 1 dominant, 1 recessive, both recessive, both recessive, and then 1 dominant, 1 recessive. And for the last one, we have both are recessive. Okay, so we need to get the phenotype here. So how are we going to easily identify the phenotype? Again, we're going to follow the gametes that we used from the parents. So I have here, ayan, pasensya na, hindi nakasya sa mahiwagang whiteboard. Ayan, so for the phenotype, we have the first one for black hair and brown eyes. So we're going to look for both dominant yung umpisa, black hair and brown eyes. So we have here 1, ito yon, black hair and brown eyes. Next, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have 9 possible offspring that will express physically black hair and brown eyes. So we have here 9. Next is 4 black hair and blue eyes. So we're going to look for the dominant B and the recessive E, yung simula. Black hair and blue eyes. So let's have here black hair, this one. Black hair and blue eyes. Black hair, blue eyes, 2. and 3. So we have 3 possible offspring that will have black hair and blue eyes. Next, we have here 4 blonde hair and brown eyes. So recessive and dominant E. We have 1, 2, and 3. So we have 3 possible offspring that will have blonde hair and brown eyes. Next, we have the last one. So for both recessive, we have here blonde hair and blue eyes. There's only 1. So there's only 1 possible offspring that will have blonde hair and blue eyes. So what is our phenotypic ratio? So our phenotypic ratio is 9:3:3:1. 9:3:3:1. For a total of 16. So we have here total of 16 boxes. The next one that we're going to look for is for the genotype in this dihybrid cross. So in the genotype, it is the composition of genes. Ibig sabihin, itong composition na to, maghahanap kayo mismo ng same set, yung ganito din, na set of gene. Okay? So we have here, what is this? This is homozygous for black hair and homozygous for brown eyes. So how many yung meron siyang katulad dito? So wala naman siyang katulad, we only have 1. So we only have 1 homozygous for black hair and homozygous for brown eyes. Next one is for this one. Ayan, ito. This is homozygous for black hair and heterozygous for brown and blue eyes. So, meron ba siyang katulad? So, ang katulad niya ay na ito. So, we have 1 and 2. Next is, we have this one, heterozygous for black and blonde hair and homozygous for blue eyes. Brown eyes rather. So, alin naman yung katulad mismo nito? So, we have here 1 and 2. Silang dalawa parehas. So, we have heterozygous for black and blonde hair and then homozygous for brown eyes. So, we have 2. Next one, this one, we have heterozygous for black and blonde and heterozygous for brown and blue. So, ilan yung katulad na ito? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, we have 4 heterozygous for black and blonde and heterozygous for brown and blue. We have 4. Next, we have this one. This is heterozygous for black and blonde and homozygous for blue eyes. So, ilan naman yung katulad nito? So, ang katulad nito ay 1 and 2. So, we only have 2. Heterozygous for black and blonde and homozygous for blue eyes. We only have 2. Next is, we have this one. This is homozygous for blonde hair and heterozygous for brown eyes and blue eyes. So, ilan naman yung kagaya nito? So, we have 1 and 2. So, we have homozygous for blonde hair and heterozygous for brown and blue. We have 2. Next. Ayan. So, kung mapapansin nyo, itong pa-diagonal, papunta dito, magkakatulad sila. Ito, yung pa-diagonal. Yan. 1. Ito at ito. Itong diagonal na to. Ito at ito. Ito at ito. Parehas sila. So, there has a pattern. Pero there is a pattern. Pero pagdating naman dito, ito. So, we have the homozygous and homozygous. Itong homozygous na to, Wala siyang katulad dyan. Lahat ng bilang niyan ay 1. Itong pa-diagonal naman na ito. So, we only have 1 homozygous for blonde and homozygous for blue eyes. We have 1 homozygous for blonde and homozygous for brown eyes. And again, 1 for homozygous for black hair and homozygous for blue eyes.